And yet, what are we doing? We're everybody around the country walking around with 2 or 3 cloth masks on, suffocating from these masks and not getting any benefit at all, according to the science. And then we have governors mandating all this stuff, and there's no science to back it up. The governor wants 2.5 million of us to be vaccinated before we get any of our freedoms back. What science is that based on? Now, you could argue, I'd still not be for him making these decisions, but you could argue if he was looking at the death rate or the incidence, he just came up with a number. He's pulled out this number from under his hat and says, we got to have 2.5 million. Well, really, the thing is he's discounting natural immunity as well. What about all the people who have had it? You know, as many people have been vaccinated, about that many people have also had it in Kentucky. If you add them together, I think we're doing pretty well. And if you look at 85% of people over 65, I think we're doing extraordinarily well around the country. If you look at the daily numbers, the incidence is coming down, the deaths coming down. We have a lot of good things going on. But we've crippled the restaurant, the bars, the hotels, the hair salons. I know someone in Bowling Green, she's been cutting hair for 30 years. She's always been a Democrat. She voted for Bashir, and she said never again. She's switching her registration. She has 3 people cutting hair for her. She can't do her business because of all of his restrictions. She's probably done 1/2 the income or 1/3 the income. So we need our freedom back. It's not that there's no danger. There are dangers, but we should all assess our risks on our own, and we shouldn't lie to people. So if you want more people to be vaccinated, don't lie to them. Don't tell them everybody's the same. Everybody's not the same. Kids have a much lower risk, and older people have a much greater risk. Weight is a problem for risk as well. But in a free country, it's your decision to make. In a free country, you decide what your risks are. Every time you get in a car, every time you ride a bike, every time you get on a motorcycle, whether you wear a helmet, you don't wear a helmet, what you eat, all of these are risks you take. And in a free society, you make them. The government doesn't get to make these decisions. There's no precedent for what Governor Bashir has done closing down restaurants. There's also no authority for it. The state legislator in January revoked his powers, trimmed his sails, and took the emergency statute and said to Governor Bashir, you no longer have the right to do this. If you make an edict, within 30 days that edict expires unless it's approved by the state legislature. So how did Governor Bashir respond? He sued the state legislature. He found a liberal judge in Frankfurt, surprise, and that judge upheld this. So right now the state legislature passes a law, the governor objects, and the courts say the law is null and void. Now this is going to go to the Supreme Court, but this will probably be the most important Kentucky Supreme Court case in our lifetime. They're going to decide whether or not the state legislature has the power to restrict the governor's powers. And realize when they pass their legislation, all they're doing is amending their own legislation from the 1990s. When they passed the emergency legislation, I think almost everybody who was there thought it meant, well, if there was a tornado in Harrodsburg, the National Guard would come with water and blankets and shelter and take care of us for a few days till we got on our feet again. No one would object to that. But nobody thought that a policy lasting a year to limit how many people can be in a restaurant or a hotel or a bowling alley or a hair salon and how you operate your business, no one ever thought that could be done by the will of one person. Nobody who knows the history of our country believes that power should be concentrated in the hands of one person, that anyone should have unchecked powers. I don't care whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. If this were a Republican governor, I'd be telling you exactly the same thing. No one person should have that much power. From my perspective, I think government's job is to keep the peace, keep the law and order, enforce contracts, and try to stay out of the way of business, not get in the way of doing business. So I think we've gotten kind of carried away, particularly our governor and the current president. And the current president has exciting news. I don't know if you've heard this. On July 4th, you can gather with 2 other people that have been vaccinated, and you can very quickly pull your mask down for a little bit with them inside. Do you think President Biden gets out at all? I mean, what do you think he thinks? Really? He doesn't think people have already figured out if they've been vaccinated? Guess what? By and large, they have immunity. By and large, they're doing very well. The amount of people being hospitalized or dying after vaccine approaches 0. It's the same with infection, too. And this is the thing they're not telling you. They're like, oh, we only have 1/3 of the people vaccinated. Well, 1/3 of the people already got it. So we have a bunch of people like myself who got it naturally and have immunity now. probably about 100 million of us. The official tally is about 32 million people have gotten COVID. But even the CDC, which is very conservative, says for every person who got it, there's 2 more people who got it. They just didn't know they had it. And if any of you have had it and you have children at home, you were sick and you didn't notice your kids getting sick, about half of them got it anyway, because the kids show very few symptoms. But the thing is, this is good news, and this is a good news that's being hidden from everyone as we put on more and more mandates, and as the governor keeps everything locked down in Kentucky. They're ignoring the good news. The good news is 1/3 of us have had it. 1/3 of us have been vaccinated. Of those over 65 years old, 85% have gotten the vaccine. They think we're too stupid to figure this out. Most people over 65 have figured it out. Now, the opposite is true if you're above 75. It is a dangerous disease, and we should all acknowledge that. But we should also acknowledge something that Dr. Fauci won't tell you, refuses to tell you, and it's probably the most important thing I'll tell you today. If one of you gets COVID, or somebody in your family gets the disease, there is a treatment. But there is a window of time in which you must take the treatment. It's called monoclonal antibodies. If you begin to get a bronchitis and you begin to cough and you're getting sick, particularly if you have any age on you or any extra weight on you, and you begin to get a cough, at the earliest signs of bronchitis, you can get the monoclonal antibodies and they'll save your life. President Trump got them, Giuliani got them, Chris Christie got them. I have a family member with metastatic cancer who got them. You can survive this thing, but you can't wait. If you wait too long, I have another friend who got this in his early 40s. He waited too long and he was just about to go on the ventilator when he got to the hospital. They said the monoclonal antibodies don't work. So instead of these TV doctors saying, oh, the mask is so good, and if you'll just wear your mask, is more important than the vaccine. No, it's not. 80% of the people getting this are wearing a mask. If you go into a hospital, you go to your local hospital and you ask your doctor, when he or she goes into a COVID patient's room, what kind of mask they wear. They're not allowed to wear a cut-up piece of T-shirt over their face. They wear an N95 mask. That's the only mask that works. So when Dr. Fauci came out and said no mask works, he was lying to you. But he was lying to you for your own good. It's sort of one of Plato's noble lies because you're too stupid, according to Dr. Fauci, to make any kind of rational decisions. So he just told you they all didn't work. And that wasn't true. The N95 masks work. The cloth masks don't. Surgical masks a little bit better, but still don't work that good. The N95 mask works. So if you're going to wear a mask, wear one that works. Don't wear the pretend mask like Dr. Fauci wears. He wears 3 pretend masks, even though he's already been vaccinated. So the thing is, he lied to us and said they don't work. Then a month later, he came out and he lied again when he said they all work. The truth is somewhere in between. Some masks work if worn properly, primarily in a hospital setting. The only randomized study of masks that was done in a hospital, N95 masks worked. The cloth masks were less than the control. So the people that didn't wear an infection didn't wear a mask got less infections than the people who wore the cloth mask. The division of power, the decentralization of power, the idea that you have your local state legislator has a vote to determine whether he agrees with the governor, these are the fundamental concepts of a constitutional government. If you have no constitution, if you have no checks and balances, you will have unlimited power. Which brings about another problem. The governor put these edicts in about March of last year. We went 9 months with no ability of the legislature to push back. Why? They can't call themselves back into session. So frankly, I think one of the other reforms we need is we need to allow the state legislature to call themselves back in session. Because otherwise, the governor operates unimpeded with unlimited power till the state legislature comes back. This is an incredibly important issue. Because while this governor has done things to involve and intervene in your business, you could even possibly, if you have a great imagination, imagine someone even worse. But the next time we get an epidemic, also realize that what we've done with the school system, closing the school system and shutting it down without an infection. Does anybody not question that? A few years ago, you know what used to happen, and it's happened during most of my adult lifetime. If you got the flu at school and 10, maybe 15 kids were sick, they'd close the school down for a few days or a week or two and let it smolder and abate, and then they'd open the school again. Do you realize we closed down every school in America without a kid getting sick? I'm not saying kids didn't get sick, but there were no epidemics. Does anybody remember an epidemic in any school before the schools were closed down? No epidemic. We closed them down to prevent this. But here's the question. At the time, they didn't know this, but we do know now, kids don't get sick from this. They very rarely get sick from this. They very rarely die from this. If you're under 25, you are more likely to die from a lightning strike than you are from COVID.